The sound of skin striking skin echoed through the decorated hall, silencing every guest in an instant. Time seemed to freeze as Amara's head snapped to the side from the force of James' palm. Her white veil fluttered with the movement, and a single tear escaped before she could stop it. 300 guests sat in shocked silence, forks and glasses suspended in midair. No one moved. No one spoke. The beautiful outdoor wedding venue with its fairy lights and flower arrangements suddenly felt cold and hostile. Amara slowly turned her face back toward James, her new husband of exactly 47 minutes. Her dark eyes, usually so warm and full of life, had turned to stone. The red mark on her cheek stood out harshly against her deep brown skin, but the pain in her heart was far worse than any physical sting. "What did you just do?" she whispered, her voice somehow carrying through the silent hall despite its softness. James stood frozen, staring at his own hand as if it belonged to someone else. Horror dawned on his face as he realized what he'd done. The champagne glass in his other hand slipped from his fingers and shattered on the floor, breaking the spell of silence. Suddenly, chairs scraped back. Amara's father lunged forward but was held back by her brothers. James' best man stepped between them, confusion written across his face. The wedding planner covered her mouth in shock. Amara's mother rushed to her side, but Amara held up her hand, stopping everyone. "Don't," she said, her voice stronger now. "Nobody move." She stood tall in her wedding dress, a vision in white lace against her beautiful dark skin. The dress she had spent months choosing, the day she had spent years dreaming about, all shattered by a single moment of uncontrolled anger. "Amara, James started, reaching for her, his face twisted with regret. "Don't touch me," she said firmly, stepping back. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of what had just happened. James had never hit her before. Never even come close. They had been together for 4 years, and while they had their fights like any couple, he had never shown this side of himself. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Amara gathered the train of her dress and walked with quiet dignity toward the exit. Her best friend Rose quickly followed, throwing a disgusted look at James as she passed. "Wait," James called out, desperation in his voice. "Please, Amara, wait." Amara paused at the door but didn't turn around. Her shoulders were squared, her back straight, showing strength even as her world crumbled around her. "What could you possibly say right now?" she asked, still facing away from him. The wedding guests sat in uncomfortable silence, witnesses to the destruction of what should have been the happiest day of two people's lives. Some looked down at their plates, unable to watch. Others couldn't tear their eyes away from the unfolding drama. James took a step toward her, then another. "I don't know what happened," he said, his voice breaking. "I've never done anything like that before. You know me, Amara. You know that's not who I am." She finally turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "Do I? Because the man I thought I knew would never hit me. Especially not on our wedding day. Especially not in front of everyone we love." James' mother stood up from her table, her face ashen. "James Alexander Thompson. What have you done?" The disappointment in her voice was palpable. James looked around, seeing the shock and judgment on every face. His father wouldn't meet his eyes. Amara's family looked ready to tear him apart. Even his own friends stared at him like he was a stranger. "Please," he said, looking back at Amara. "Just give me a chance to explain." "Explain what?" Rose snapped, putting a protective arm around Amara's shoulders. "There's nothing to explain. We all saw what happened." But Amara gently moved Rose's arm away. Despite everything, despite the humiliation and pain, something made her pause. 4 years of love and trust couldn't be erased in one terrible moment, could they? The man standing before her, looking broken and desperate, was the same man who had held her through her father's heart attack, who had supported her through graduate school, who had always treated her with love and respect. Until now. "You have 1 minute?" she said coldly. "And it better be good." The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Amara's bridesmaids huddled together, whispering and watching. The catering staff stood frozen by the kitchen doors. Everyone waited to see what would happen next. James stepped forward, his hands shaking. "I don't know what happened," he repeated. "There's no excuse, no explanation that could make this okay." He swallowed hard. "But something's wrong with me, Amara. The headaches I've been having. I felt this weird sensation right before it happened, like I wasn't in control of my body." Amara's stern expression faltered slightly. James had been complaining about headaches for weeks, but both of them had chalked it up to wedding stress. "That doesn't give you the right to hit me," she said, but her voice had lost some of its edge. "Nothing gives me that right," James agreed quickly. "Nothing. I would cut off my own hand before I would willingly hurt you. His voice broke. I need help, Amara. Something's not right with me. But I'm not asking you to stay. You deserve better than what just happened. All I'm asking is that you don't make your final decision about us right now, in this moment. Amara stood still, conflicted. The rational part of her brain screamed to walk away and never look back. But her heart, the heart that had loved this man for 4 years, wouldn't let her leave just yet. I need time, she finally said. And you need to figure out what's going on with you. With that, she turned and walked out of the reception hall, her white dress trailing behind her. The door closed behind her with a soft click that somehow sounded like the end of everything. James stood alone in the middle of the room, surrounded by shocked faces and broken dreams, wondering if he had just lost the love of his life forever. The days following the wedding were a blur for Amara. She stayed at her parents' house, surrounded by family who tried their best to comfort her while barely containing their own anger. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from concerned friends and family, but she couldn't bring herself to respond to any of them. She felt numb, disconnected from the world around her. You don't have to decide anything right now, her mother said gently, sitting beside her on the bed. Take all the time you need. Amara nodded, staring out the window at the neighborhood where she'd grown up. I keep replaying it in my mind, she whispered, trying to make sense of it. He never showed any signs, Mom. Not in 4 years. Her mother sighed, taking Amara's hand in hers. Sometimes people hide who they really are. And sometimes... She hesitated. Sometimes good people do terrible things. Which one is James? Amara asked, her voice small. I don't know, sweetheart. But I do know that you don't have to figure that out today. The marriage is so new, an annulment would be simple. Amara nodded again, but the thought of erasing her marriage as if it had never happened brought fresh tears to her eyes. Despite everything, she couldn't bring herself to hate James. Not yet, anyway. Across town, James sat in a sterile examination room, waiting for the doctor to return with his test results. The wedding incident had escalated quickly, first a CT scan, then an MRI, then more tests when they found something concerning. Dr. Parker returned, holding a folder and wearing a serious expression that made James' heart sink. We found the cause of your headaches and the episode at your wedding, the doctor said, sitting down across from James. You have a small brain tumor pressing on an area that can affect impulse control and emotional regulation. James felt the blood drain from his face. A tumor? Is it? Am I going to die? It's benign, Dr. Parker assured him quickly, and its location makes it operable with a good chance of complete recovery. But left untreated, it could continue to cause these episodes of uncharacteristic behavior, headaches, and potentially other neurological symptoms. James slumped back in his chair, feeling relief and fear in equal measure. So what happened at my wedding? It wasn't really me? Neurologically speaking, sudden aggression can definitely be a symptom of a tumor in this location. It doesn't mean you're not responsible for your actions, but it does mean there's a medical explanation for behavior that's out of character for you. James nodded slowly, trying to process everything. How soon can we do the surgery? We can schedule it for next week, Dr. Parker replied. In the meantime, I'm prescribing medication that should help control the symptoms. But you shouldn't be alone right now, just in case there are more episodes. I don't think that's going to be a problem, James said bitterly. My parents have barely let me out of their sight since the wedding. After leaving the doctor's office, James sat in his car for a long time, staring at his phone. He needed to tell Amara, but would she even believe him? Would she think he was making up an excuse? He couldn't blame her if she did. Finally, he typed out a text message. I need to talk to you. The doctor found something. Please, Amara. Across town, Amara's phone buzzed with the message. Rose, who had barely left her friend's side since the wedding, peeked over her shoulder. Are you going to answer him? She asked. Amara bit her lip. I don't know. You don't owe him anything, Rose reminded her. Not a conversation, not a chance to explain, nothing. I know, Amara said quietly. But I need answers. For myself. After a long moment, she replied, tomorrow. 2 p.m., the coffee shop on Main. She chose a public place deliberately. Though she couldn't imagine James hurting her again, she wasn't taking any chances. The next day, Amara arrived at the coffee shop early. She chose a table near the door, an easy escape route if needed. She wore jeans and a simple blouse, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. No makeup covered the dark circles under her eyes, evidence of many sleepless nights. When James walked in, she almost didn't recognize him. In just a few days, he had lost weight and his usually confident demeanor was gone. He moved cautiously as if afraid of frightening her. "Thank you for meeting me," he said quietly, sitting down across from her. Amara nodded stiffly. "You said the doctor found something?" James pulled out a folder from his bag and placed it on the table between them. "I have a brain tumor," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "It's in a part of my brain that controls impulses and behavior. The doctor said it could explain what happened at the wedding." Amara stared at him, then at the folder. Slowly, she opened it and looked at the medical reports inside, the MRI images showing a small white mass in James' brain. "The doctor said it's been growing for months, maybe longer," James continued when she didn't speak. "It explains the headaches, the mood swings." He swallowed hard. "What I did to you." Amara looked up from the papers, her expression guarded. "So you're saying it wasn't your fault? That you can't be held responsible?" James shook his head firmly. "No. I'm still responsible for what I did. Nothing can change that or make it okay. I'm just trying to explain that it wasn't the real me. I would never consciously hurt you, Amara. Never." She sat back, arms crossed protectively over her chest. "When is the surgery?" "Next Tuesday. They're going to remove it completely. The doctor says the prognosis is good." Amara nodded slowly, trying to process everything. Part of her felt relief knowing there was a medical explanation for what happened. Another part remained wary, unable to forget the shock and humiliation of that moment. "I don't know what this means for us," she admitted. "I need time to think." "I understand," James said quickly. "I'm not asking you to come back or forgive me. I just wanted you to know the truth. Whatever you decide, I'll respect it." They sat in silence for a moment, the coffee shop bustling around them. It was strange to be having such an intimate conversation in such a public place, strangers laughing and chatting just feet away, oblivious to their personal drama. "Can I call you?" James asked finally. "After the surgery?" Amara hesitated, then nodded. "Yes. Let me know that you're okay." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a small opening, a tiny crack in the wall that had sprung up between them. As they parted ways outside the coffee shop, neither knew what the future held, but for the first time since the wedding, both felt a glimmer of hope. The day of James' surgery arrived with cloudy skies and a slight chill in the air. He checked into the hospital at dawn, his parents by his side, offering support even as worry etched lines on their faces. James hadn't slept much the night before, his mind racing with thoughts of Amara and fears about the procedure. "Did you call her?" his mother asked softly as they waited for the nurse to come get him. James nodded. "She knows," she said. He swallowed hard. "She said she'd be thinking of me today." His mother squeezed his hand but said nothing. What was there to say? Their perfect wedding had turned into a nightmare, and now their son was facing brain surgery. All they could do was be there for him and hope that somehow things would work out. When the nurse finally called his name, James hugged his parents tightly. "I love you both," he said, fighting back tears. "We'll be right here when you wake up," his father promised, his voice gruff with emotion. As James was wheeled toward the operating room, he couldn't help but think about Amara. Would she really be thinking of him today? Did she still care at all? Or had he destroyed everything beyond repair with that one terrible moment? Across town, Amara sat at her desk at work, unable to focus on anything. She had told James she would be thinking of him, and she couldn't think of anything else. The documents on her computer screen blurred as her mind kept returning to the hospital where, right now, surgeons were operating on James' brain. "You okay?" her coworker Denise asked, popping her head into Amara's office. "Fine," Amara lied, forcing a smile. "Just a little tired." Denise gave her a sympathetic look. Everyone at the office knew about the wedding disaster. It was hard to keep something like that quiet in a small town. To their credit, most had been respectful and supportive, but Amara could still feel the weight of their curious glances and whispered conversations. By lunchtime, Amara couldn't stand it anymore. She told her boss she wasn't feeling well and left early, but instead of going home, she found herself driving toward the hospital. She wasn't sure what she was doing or what she would say when she got there. All she knew was that she needed to be there. When she arrived at the surgical waiting room, James' parents looked up in surprise. "Amara," his mother said, standing quickly. "We didn't expect." "I know," Amara said awkwardly. I needed to be here. Is there any news?" "He's still in surgery," James' father replied. "They said it could be several hours." Amara nodded and took a seat across from them. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. The last time they had seen each other was at the wedding, right after the incident. What could they possibly say to each other now? After a few minutes, James' mother moved to sit beside Amara. "He told us about the tumor," she said quietly. "That doesn't excuse what happened, but—" "I know," Amara replied, her voice equally soft. "I've been doing a lot of reading about it. Brain tumors can cause dramatic personality changes sometimes." "He's been devastated," his mother continued. "Not just about the diagnosis but about what he did to you. He loves you so much, Amara." Amara looked down at her hands, noticing she still wore her wedding ring. She hadn't been able to bring herself to take it off yet. "I love him too," she admitted. "That's what makes this so hard. If I didn't care, it would be easy to walk away." Hours passed slowly in the waiting room. They made awkward small talk, ate vending machine snacks, and watched the clock tick by. Finally, a surgeon in scrubs appeared at the door. "Thompson family?" he called. They all stood up quickly, and Amara hung back slightly, suddenly unsure of her place. But James' mother reached back and took her hand, pulling her forward. "How is he?" his father asked anxiously. "The surgery went well," the surgeon said with a smile. "We were able to remove the entire tumor, and there were no complications. He's in recovery now and should be waking up soon." Relief washed over all of them. James' mother started crying, and his father put an arm around her shoulders. Amara felt her own eyes fill with tears. "When can we see him?" she asked, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. "He'll be moved to a room in about an hour," the surgeon replied. "You can see him then, but only for a short visit. He'll be groggy from the anesthesia." As they waited for James to be transferred to his room, Amara stepped outside to call her parents and let them know what was happening. Her mother answered on the first ring. "You're at the hospital?" she asked, surprise evident in her voice when Amara explained. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" "I don't know, Mom," Amara sighed. "I just know I needed to be here." "Be careful with your heart, sweetheart," her mother warned gently. "Take things slow." "I will," Amara promised. "I'm not making any decisions right now. I couldn't let him go through this alone." When she was finally allowed to see James, Amara's breath caught in her throat. He looked so vulnerable lying in the hospital bed, his head wrapped in bandages, tubes and wires connecting him to various machines. His parents had gone in first and were now giving Amara some time alone with him. She approached the bed slowly, unsure if he was awake. His eyes were closed, his breathing deep and even. Gently she touched his hand. James' eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then clearing as they landed on her face. "Amara?" he whispered, his voice raspy. "You're here? I thought I was dreaming." "I'm here," she confirmed, forcing a small smile. "The doctor said the surgery went well." James tried to nod but winced at the movement. "They got it all out," he said. No more episodes." His hand turned over beneath hers, their fingers intertwining automatically, a habit from years of holding hands. Amara almost pulled away but found she couldn't. Despite everything, this felt right, being here with him, holding his hand through a difficult time. "I'm so sorry," James whispered, tears filling his eyes. "For everything. For ruining our wedding day, for hurting you." "Shoo," Amara soothed. "Don't try to talk too much. You need to rest." "But I need you to know," he insisted, his grip on her hand tightening slightly. "I would never hurt you. Not the real me. I love you more than anything in this world." Amara felt her own tears threatening to fall. "I know," she said softly. "I believe you." And she did. Looking at him now, vulnerable and sincere, she believed with her whole heart that the man she loved would never willingly hurt her. The question was whether that belief was enough to rebuild what had been broken. "Rest now," she said, gently pulling her hand away. "I'll come back tomorrow." As she turned to leave, James called out softly, "Amara?" She paused, looking back at him. "Thank you for being here," he said. "It means everything." She nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat, and left the room. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall and let the tears fall freely. She wasn't ready to forgive completely, wasn't ready to go back to how things were, but for the first time since the wedding, she could see a path forward. Perhaps, with time and healing for both of them, they could find their way back to each other. The weeks following James' surgery were a time of slow healing, physical for him, emotional for both. Amara visited the hospital daily, always during lunch breaks or after work, never staying too long but always making sure he knew she was there. They talked about simple things at first, his recovery progress, the weather, books they were reading. Gradually, they began to rebuild the easy conversation that had always been a cornerstone of their relationship. 2 weeks after the surgery, James was released from the hospital. His parents insisted he stay with them during his recovery and he didn't argue. He wasn't ready to be alone, and the home he had planned to share with Amara stood empty, a painful reminder of the future they had lost, or at least put on hold. "The doctor says I'm healing faster than expected," James told Amara during one of her visits to his parents' house. They sat on the back porch enjoying the first truly warm day of spring. The bandages were gone from his head now, replaced by a neat row of stitches that would soon be removed. His hair was starting to grow back around the surgical site, a strange mix of stubble and his usual thick locks. "That's good," Amara said with a small smile. "How are the headaches?" "Almost gone. I still get tired easily, but otherwise I feel more like myself than I have in months." He hesitated, then added softly, "Maybe even a year. Looking back, I think the symptoms started long before we noticed them." Amara nodded, thinking about the past year. There had been subtle changes, James becoming more irritable, more forgetful, having trouble sleeping. They had blamed it on work stress, on wedding planning, on anything but a medical problem. "I've been seeing someone," she said suddenly. James looked up sharply, his expression hurt before she quickly clarified, "A therapist. I've been seeing a therapist." "Oh," he said, relaxing slightly. "That's good. Is it helping?" Amara nodded. "It is. She's helping me work through everything, not just what happened at the wedding but all the emotions that came after. The anger, the confusion, the guilt." "Guilt?" James interrupted, looking confused. "What do you have to feel guilty about?" Amara looked down at her hands. "For not noticing something was wrong with you sooner. For almost walking away without giving you a chance to explain. For still being afraid sometimes, even though I know it wasn't really you who did that." James reached across the space between them, his hand stopping just short of touching hers. "None of that is your fault, Amara. None of it." She looked at his outstretched hand for a long moment before placing her own in it. His fingers wrapped around hers, warm and familiar. "I'm seeing someone too," he said quietly. "A therapist, I mean. He's helping me deal with what happened. The weird thing is, I remember doing it, hitting you, but it feels like watching someone else in my body. I couldn't stop it, couldn't control it." He shuddered. "That's the scariest part, knowing I was capable of hurting the person I love most." "But it wasn't you," Amara reminded him gently. "Not the real you." They sat in silence for a while, holding hands and watching birds flit around the backyard. It was the most physical contact they'd had since before the wedding, and Amara was surprised by how natural it felt, how much she had missed his touch. "I miss our life," James said finally. "I miss you. I miss us." Amara's heart ached at the longing in his voice. "I miss us too," she admitted. "But I'm still healing." "I know," he said quickly. "I'm not pushing. I just wanted you to know." As April turned to May, James returned to work part-time. His recovery continued smoothly, with regular follow-up appointments showing no signs of the tumor returning. Amara focused on her own career, throwing herself into a big project at work to keep her mind occupied. They continued to see each other several times a week, but always in public places or at his parents' house. Never alone, never in a setting that felt too intimate. They were dating again, in a way, getting to know each other as if for the first time, healing together but also as individuals. One evening in late May, James invited Amara to dinner at a new restaurant downtown. It was the first time he had suggested something that felt like a real date, and Amara spent far too long deciding what to wear before settling on a simple blue dress that she knew James loved. When she arrived at the restaurant, he was waiting outside, holding a single white rose. He looked fully recovered now, the scar on his head mostly hidden by his regrown hair. More importantly, his eyes were clear and bright, the way they had been when they first fell in love. "You look beautiful," he said, handing her the rose. "Thank you," she replied, feeling suddenly shy. "You look good too. Healthy." The restaurant was quiet and elegant, with soft lighting and private booths. They were shown to a table near the back, away from other diners. "I hope this is okay," James said, looking nervous. "I wanted somewhere we could talk privately, but I understand if you're not comfortable." "It's perfect," Amara assured him. And it was. For the first time since the wedding, she felt completely at ease with him. They ordered dinner and talked about light topics at first: work, friends, a movie Amara had seen recently. As they ate, though, the conversation turned more serious. "I've been thinking a lot about us," James said, his eyes fixed on hers. "About where we go from here." Amara nodded, her heart beating faster. "Me too. I know things can never go back to exactly how they were before," he continued. "Too much has happened. But I wonder if maybe we could create something new together. Something stronger because of what we've been through. Amara took a deep breath. I've been afraid, she admitted. Not of you, not anymore. But of trusting again, of being vulnerable. I understand that, James said softly. But I've realized something, she continued. Every relationship requires trust. Every love is a risk. What happened to us was terrible, but it was also not something either of us could have predicted or prevented. James reached across the table, and this time Amara met him halfway, their hands clasping in the middle. I love you, Amara, he said simply. I never stopped. I never will. I love you too, she replied, feeling tears prick at the corners of her eyes. I want to try again. Together. The relief and joy on James' face made her heart swell. They still had a long way to go, she knew. Trust broken was never easily repaired. But sitting across from him now, seeing the man she had fallen in love with, Amara believed they could build something beautiful from the broken pieces of their past. As they left the restaurant, walking close but not quite touching, James asked hesitantly, Would you like to see the house? I've been working on it when I can, trying to get it ready. The house they had bought together before the wedding had been sitting empty all this time, waiting for them to begin their life together. I'd like that, Amara said, surprised by how much she meant it. The short drive to the house was quiet, both lost in their own thoughts. When they arrived, James unlocked the front door and stepped back, letting Amara enter first. She gasped softly as she walked in. The empty house they had purchased was now partially furnished, with warm lights glowing in the living room and fresh flowers on the coffee table. It looked like a home waiting to be lived in. I've been working on it bit by bit, James explained, watching her face. Not pressuring you to move in or anything, just hoping. Believing that someday this could still be our home. Amara walked slowly through the rooms, touching furniture and decorations, all chosen with care to match the style they had picked out together months ago. In the kitchen, she found her favorite tea in the cupboard. In the living room, pictures of them from happier times sat framed on shelves. It's beautiful, she said finally, turning to face him. It feels like us. That's what I was hoping for, James replied, his voice thick with emotion. They stood looking at each other across the living room, the space between them filled with everything they had been through and everything they hoped for. Then, slowly, Amara crossed the room and wrapped her arms around James, burying her face in his chest. His arms came around her, holding her close but gently, as if she were precious and fragile. She felt his tears on her hair as he whispered, Welcome home. It wasn't the end of their journey, not by a long shot. But standing there in the house that would become their home, holding each other after months of pain and healing, they both knew they had turned a corner. Together they would write the next chapter of their story. Summer arrived in full force, bringing hot days and warm nights filled with fireflies. Amara and James had fallen into a new routine, not quite living together yet, but spending most of their free time at the house, making it truly their own. Amara had moved some of her clothes and personal items in, staying overnight occasionally but still maintaining her apartment as a safety net, a place to retreat to when she needed space. Their friends and family watched their reconciliation with mixed reactions. Some, like James' parents, were cautiously supportive, grateful to see their son happy again and impressed by the effort both were putting into rebuilding their relationship. Others, particularly Amara's friends, remained skeptical. Are you sure about this? Rose asked one day as she helped Amara paint the guest bedroom. I mean, I get that it was a medical thing, but still. I'm not sure about anything, Amara admitted, carefully edging around the window frame. But I know I love him and I know the man I fell in love with is back. The tumor changed him, Rose. You didn't see how he was in the months leading up to the wedding, the mood swings, the headaches, the personality changes. I didn't connect the dots then, but looking back, it was like watching someone else take over his body bit by bit. Rose sighed, dipping her roller in the paint tray. I just don't want you to get hurt again. I don't want that either, Amara said with a small smile. But I can't live my life afraid of what might happen. None of us knows what tomorrow brings. Later that evening, after Rose had left, Amara found James sitting on the back porch, looking at the sunset. She sat beside him on the porch swing, their shoulders touching comfortably. Rose still doesn't trust me, he said without looking at her. It wasn't a question. She's protective, Amara replied. She'll come around eventually. James nodded slowly. I can't blame her. Sometimes I still don't trust myself. Amara turned to look at him, surprised. What do you mean? He sighed, finally meeting her eyes. I have these dreams sometimes. Nightmares, really. Where it happens again, I hit you, but this time there's no tumor to blame. It's just me being a monster. Amara's heart ached at the pain in his voice. James, you're not a monster. You never were. But how can we be sure it won't happen again? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The doctors say the tumor is gone, the scans are clear, but what if they miss something? What if it comes back? Amara took his hand, squeezing it reassuringly. Then we'll deal with it together. We know what to look for now, the headaches, the mood changes. We won't ignore the signs again. James looked down at their intertwined fingers. You know, when I was in the hospital, I made a promise to myself. If you gave me another chance, I would spend the rest of my life making sure you never regretted it. I don't, Amara said softly. Regret it, I mean. Being here with you feels right. He smiled then, a genuine smile that lit up his eyes. I was thinking, what if we went away for a weekend? Just the two of us. No family checking in, no friends giving opinions. Just us figuring out what our future looks like. The idea was both exciting and a little scary. They hadn't spent a night completely alone together since before the wedding. But Amara found herself nodding. I'd like that. They chose a small cabin by a lake, about 2 hours' drive from the city. It was simple but charming, with a stone fireplace and a deck overlooking the water. They arrived on a Friday afternoon, the car packed with groceries and weekend bags. It's beautiful, Amara said, stepping out of the car and breathing in the fresh air. The lake sparkled in the distance, surrounded by trees in full summer bloom. James carried their bags inside while Amara explored the cabin. It was cozy and clean, with a small kitchen, a living area centered around the fireplace, and a bedroom with a big window facing the lake. Something about the quiet simplicity of the place felt healing, as if they had stepped outside of time and away from all their problems. They spent the afternoon settling in, unpacking groceries and walking down to the lake. The water was cool but not cold, and they took off their shoes to wade along the shore, talking about simple things, a book James was reading, a project Amara was working on at her job. It felt normal, comfortable, like the early days of their relationship before wedding stress and health problems had complicated everything. As evening fell, they cooked dinner together, moving around the small kitchen with the easy coordination of two people who knew each other well. James made his specialty pasta sauce while Amara prepared a salad, their conversation flowing naturally from topic to topic. After dinner, they sat on the deck with glasses of wine, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. In the growing darkness, fireflies began to appear, tiny flashes of light dancing over the lake. I've missed this, James said softly, looking at Amara's profile in the fading light. Just being with you. Not talking about doctors or therapists or family opinions. Just us. Amara turned to face him, her expression serious. I've missed it too. But we can't pretend the hard stuff didn't happen. It's part of our story now. I know, James agreed. And maybe that's not entirely bad. We've both changed. Grown stronger in some ways. They fell silent, watching the last colors fade from the sky as stars began to appear. When Amara shivered slightly in the cooling air, James hesitated, then put his arm around her shoulders. She leaned into him, fitting perfectly against his side as she always had. When I was in the hospital, James said after a while, I had a lot of time to think about us. About what I wanted for our future. And I realized something important. What's that? Amara asked, looking up at him. That even if we never got back together, even if you decided you couldn't trust me again, I would still be grateful for the time we had. You made me a better person, Amara. You showed me what real love looks like. Tears pricked at Amara's eyes. Even after everything that happened? Especially after everything that happened, he said firmly. You could have walked away. No one would have blamed you. But you stayed. You gave me a chance to explain, to heal, to make things right. That's real love. Amara reached up to touch his face, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. I couldn't walk away, she admitted. Even when I was angry and hurt, even when I wasn't sure we had a future, I couldn't stop loving you. James turned his head to kiss her palm, a gesture so tender it made her heart ache. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he leaned down and kissed her lips. It was their first real kiss since before the wedding, soft and tentative at first, then deepening as Amara responded, her arms sliding around his neck. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. I should probably set up the couch for me to sleep on, James said, his voice rough with emotion. But Amara shook her head. No, she said softly. Stay with me tonight. Later, lying in bed with James' arms around her, Amara felt a peace she hadn't experienced in months. Outside, the moon shone on the lake, and the occasional hoot of an owl broke the night silence. They had made love slowly, rediscovering each other with gentle touches and whispered words of affection. It felt like coming home. What are you thinking about? James asked, his breath warm against her hair. The future, she replied honestly. Our future. And what does it look like? Amara smiled in the darkness. It looks good. Different than I imagined before, but good. James tightened his arms around her. I love you, Amara. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. Together, she agreed, closing her eyes and letting sleep take her, safe in the arms of the man she loved. The weekend passed too quickly, filled with long walks, quiet conversations, and moments of rediscovered intimacy. By Sunday afternoon, as they packed the car to return to the city, both felt more certain about their path forward. I don't want to go back, Amara admitted as they stood on the deck one last time, looking out at the lake. We can come back, James promised. Anytime you want. But I'm not sad to be going home. Oh. The word had such weight now, such meaning. Not just a place with walls and a roof, but wherever they were together. As they drove back to the city, Amara reached across the center console to take James' hand. I've been thinking, she said. I want to move in. Properly, I mean. All my things, not just visiting. The joy on James' face was answer enough, but he squeezed her hand and said, nothing would make me happier. The next few weeks were busy with moving arrangements, as Amara gave notice on her apartment and packed up her belongings. Their friends and family rallied around them, helping with boxes and furniture, some more enthusiastically than others. Rose still watched James with wary eyes, but she was trying for Amara's sake. One evening, as they collapsed onto the couch after a long day of unpacking, James pulled a small box from his pocket. What's that? Amara asked, eyeing it curiously. Something I've been holding on to, he replied, opening the box to reveal her engagement ring, the one she had taken off the night of the wedding and never put back on. I'm not proposing again. Not yet. But I wanted you to have this back if you want it. As a promise that someday when we're both ready, we'll try again. Amara looked at the ring, remembering the day James had first given it to her, how happy they had been. So much had happened since then, so much pain and healing. Slowly, she held out her left hand. I want it back, she said. Not as an engagement ring, not yet. But as a promise, like you said. A promise that we won't give up on each other, no matter what. James slipped the ring onto her finger where it belonged. It felt right, a symbol of their journey and their commitment to each other. No matter what, he agreed, pulling her close for a kiss that sealed their promise. 1 year later, on a perfect summer day, Amara stood in the small dressing room of a garden venue, looking at herself in the mirror. Her wedding dress was simpler this time, an elegant ivory sheath that skimmed her curves and complemented her dark skin. Her hair was styled in loose curls, adorned with tiny white flowers. You look beautiful, her mother said, adjusting the neckline slightly. Are you nervous? Amara shook her head, smiling. Not at all. Not this time. It had been a journey to get to this day, a path with unexpected turns and obstacles. After moving in together, they had taken things slowly, rebuilding their relationship day by day. James continued to be healthy, with no signs of the tumor returning. They had both continued therapy, separately and together, working through the trauma of what had happened and learning better ways to communicate and support each other. 6 months ago, on the anniversary of their first disastrous wedding, James had proposed again properly, with a new ring to symbolize their new beginning. The old engagement ring now hung on a chain around Amara's neck, a reminder of where they had been and how far they had come. This wedding was different in every way. Small and intimate, with only 50 guests instead of 300. Held in a garden rather than a grand hall. No elaborate decorations or expensive catering, just simple beauty and the people who truly mattered to them. A knock on the door interrupted Amara's thoughts. Rose poked her head in, looking stunning in her bridesmaid dress. It's time, she said with a smile. Over the past year, Rose had gradually warmed to James again, seeing his genuine love for Amara and his commitment to making things right. Amara took a deep breath and nodded. I'm ready. As she walked down the garden path toward the flower-covered arch where James waited, Amara felt nothing but joy and certainty. This was right. This was where she was meant to be. James watched her approach, his face filled with love and wonder. He looked handsome in his simple suit, healthy and strong, completely recovered from his surgery with only a faint scar hidden by his hair as a reminder of what they had overcome. When she reached him, he took her hands in his, squeezing them gently. You are so beautiful, he whispered, his voice catching. The ceremony was short and meaningful. They had written their own vows this time, wanting to speak from the heart rather than repeat traditional words. Amara, James began, his voice strong and sure. I stand here today humbled by your love and strength. You saw me at my worst and my best and you chose to stay. You fought for us when it would have been easier to walk away. I promise to spend every day of the rest of my life earning the trust you've placed in me. I promise to listen when you speak, to hold you when you need comfort, to laugh with you in joy and stand by you in sorrow. Most of all, I promise to remember that love is not just a feeling but a choice I make gladly, every morning when I wake up beside you and every night when I fall asleep with you in my arms. You are my heart, my home, my forever. Tears slipped down Amara's cheeks as she listened, but they were tears of happiness. When it was her turn, she took a deep breath and met his gaze steadily. James, she said, our story is not a perfect fairy tale. It's something better, it's real. We have faced challenges that would have broken other couples, and we've emerged stronger, more loving, more committed. I've learned that true love isn't about perfect moments but about standing together through the imperfect ones. I promise to remember that lesson. I promise to be your partner in all things, to celebrate your joys and help carry your burdens. I promise to grow with you, to build a life that reflects the depth of our love and the strength of our commitment. You are the love of my life today and always. As they exchanged rings and were pronounced husband and wife, the small gathering of friends and family erupted in applause. This time, when James kissed his bride, there was no shadow hanging over them, no hidden illness waiting to strike. There was only love, pure and tested and true. The reception was held in the same garden, with tables set up under strings of lights and a small dance floor created on the lawn. As evening fell, James led Amara to the center of the floor for their first dance. He held her close, swaying to the music, their foreheads touching. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Thompson?" he asked softly. "Happy," she replied simply. Completely, perfectly happy. Around them, their loved ones watched with smiles and some with tears. They all knew the journey this couple had taken to reach this moment, the pain and healing that had brought them here. "You know," James said as he spun her gently under his arm, "when I think about what happened at our first wedding, I'm almost grateful." Amara raised an eyebrow, surprised. "Grateful?" He nodded, pulling her close again. "If it hadn't happened, we might never have discovered the tumor until it was too late. And we might never have learned how strong our love really is, how much we can overcome together." Amara considered this, resting her head on his shoulder. "I never thought of it that way before," she admitted. "But you're right. It was terrible, but it led us here to this moment. And I wouldn't trade this for anything." As the night went on, they danced with their parents, laughed with their friends, and cut a simple cake that tasted far better than the elaborate creation from their first wedding. When it was time to leave, their guests lined the garden path, holding sparklers that lit up the darkness. James took Amara's hand as they prepared to run through the tunnel of light. "Ready for our next adventure?" he asked with a smile. "With you?" she replied, squeezing his hand. "Always." They ran together through the sparkling path, laughter and love carrying them forward into their future, a future they had fought for, a love they had earned through pain and healing and unwavering commitment to each other. Later that night, in the quiet of their hotel room, James held Amara close, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "I was thinking," he said thoughtfully, "about how different this feels from last time." "It feels real," Amara replied, looking up at him. "Last time we were caught up in the spectacle of it all, the big venue, the hundreds of guests, the perfect clothes and food and flowers. This time it was just about us. Our love. Our commitment." James nodded, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Someone once told me that the wedding is just one day but the marriage is your whole life. I didn't really understand that until now." Amara smiled, snuggling closer to him. "We've already started our marriage, really. This past year, living together, working through everything. Today just made it official." "Official and perfect," James added. "No medical emergencies, no family drama. Just us, promising forever." "Forever," Amara repeated, closing her eyes contentedly. "I like the sound of that." As they drifted off to sleep in each other's arms, both reflected silently on the journey that had brought them to this place. The pain had been real, the challenges significant, but in overcoming them, they had built a love stronger than either could have imagined. Their story wasn't a fairy tale, but something far more valuable, a testament to the power of forgiveness, the strength of commitment, and the healing magic of true love. In the years that followed, they would face other challenges as all couples do. There would be arguments and misunderstandings, moments of frustration and times of grief. But there would also be joy beyond measure, the birth of their children, professional successes, quiet evenings at home and exciting adventures abroad. Through it all, they would remember the lesson they had learned so painfully at the beginning of their marriage, that love is a choice, made new each day, and that together they could overcome anything. And sometimes, on quiet anniversaries, they would return to that little cabin by the lake where they had found their way back to each other. They would sit on the deck, holding hands as the sun set over the water, grateful for the second chance that had given them this beautiful life together. Their love story hadn't begun perfectly, but it had grown into something real and lasting. Something worth fighting for. Something neither would ever take for granted again. And really, isn't that the greatest love story of all?